I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I have to be the one that tells you that the old you must die if the new you is going to come to light. The old you must die. And that was a sad truth that I had to accept when I began to create bigger goals for myself, when I began to dream bigger, when I set my mind to attain certain things in life, that I realized, like, okay, my new me and my old me, they share some similarities, but there are other things that they just simply do not share and do not have in common. So the old me had to dissolve and had to die. And that can be not only bittersweet, but really tough, like really, really tough. I know I'm just saying it very passively, but that's a difficult thing to reconcile when you realize that your old habits, your old ways of being, your old circle, your old just systems are no longer serving you. And so now it's causing you to come to the forefront with a new identity. And the subconscious mind is so powerful, but it's not a respecter of persons. And I've mentioned that in my previous video. It's not saying like, oh, wow, she seems to really like, eating well, so she's automatically going to be healthy, or he really enjoys being such a great debater, so he's automatically going to go into the field of, the law field. It just doesn't work that way. The identity must be assumed through actions and through belief systems before it can be acquired tangibly in the physical present moment. So the old you must die. The old version of you that accepted less, the old version of you that taught yourself to sort of embrace lack and a mindset of just non-discipline, and a mindset that justified and supported any excuse that came to the forefront, because the new you is really calling forth a different version of you. The new you is saying, wait a second, if the old you got you to this point, then what makes you think the old you can get you to the next point? And that was something that I had to reconcile within my mind. It's not an easy reconciliation until you realize that there is a resistance and a lack of propelling forward. And it's not a matter of effort, and it's not a matter of grit, because you might have all those components and still not go anywhere. And you realize you're not going anywhere because you are still associating with the former identity, the identity that got you to this point. So let's just stop for a second and just give thanks to the former identity, and also respect the part of us that only knew what to do in that moment. You see, it's not even a blame game, nor is it some sort of condemning that I want to do in this moment. No, it's an acceptance of, thank you for bringing me this far. You've had limited thinking, you've had limited thoughts, you've had life experiences that have brought you to this moment. But then now what? Now what? What is the next step? How are you going to go from here to there? Well, you typically can't go with the same mindset. You typically can't go with the same belief systems. You typically can't go with the same thoughts and the same actions and the same schedule. Things have to be eradicated, and sometimes even starting from scratch. And that's the thing that felt a little bit like mourning for me, because there were friends that just had to fall off. There were family members that just had to fall off. There were jobs that just had to fall off. There were relationships that had to fall off. And it's just a gentle and natural cycle to what happens when you are moving in a different direction. When you move in a different direction, it's going to require a different map. It's going to require a different level of grit, a different level of perseverance, and a different level of commitment that you've made to yourself, and say, yes, I am choosing this. And because I'm choosing this, it is going to come with a set number of things that I now have to adjust and pivot towards in order to achieve that thing. And so the old you must die, and you can mourn the old you. I feel like I had so many funerals for the old versions of me. And it's not to dismiss any talent. It's not to dismiss any things that you've done that have really been a blessing and have really girded you and got you to this point, because there are some things that you just don't want to throw away, like your values and your belief systems, if they've been benefiting you, or your talents and your gifts and your abilities. Like, some things can come with you on the next leg of your race, but then there are other things that are just detrimental to where you're headed and have to be dismissed. So the old you does have to die. And you can create 3,000 vision boards, and you can have 300 goals listed and outlined in your journal that you want to accomplish for this year. And that's all great. However, if it's coming with the former identity, then chances are you're going to meet resistance, and you're going to meet stagnation, and you're going to meet delays and detours because you're trying to do the new with the old system. I instantly think about like our computer systems and what I grew up as a millennial using, and what has just changed throughout the years, right? From like thumb drives to computer systems to flat screens to, phones that now have cameras, and computer, literally pocket computers that we're walking around with on a daily basis. Things have to change, and things do change, and it doesn't require your consent or your permission. It is just a natural flow and state of life. The only thing constant is change. So the old you must die in order for the new you to arrive. And when the new you does arrive, that's when you really want to step into a different identity. You want to be the thing that you are calling forward. And so when I see athletes training, or I see, someone who's really great at what they do and like in their field, there is an energy and a belief and a feeling and a way of being that they embody that mimics that. It's never separated. It's usually one and the same, which is why some people's energy, you can just say, wow, that you feel their energy, you feel their commitment to themselves, you feel their grit, you feel their power, you feel that they feed themselves what it is that they need to get going on it. And I'm not talking about food, but they feed themselves the empowerment, the courage, the confidence, the prayers, the meditation, the routines, the discipline, the going to sleep on time, the things, all the components and the things that make them who they are. And so that is when your new you is literally identifying and meeting the new you, because you have new habits and new systems and new thoughts and new patterns. And that's what the subconscious mind believes, not just fluff, not just things that we just say casually, because we can all say, I want this and I want that, and I'd like to see this change and I'd like to see that change. But the true grit and the true power is not in just professing it, but it is in being it. And the way that you be it is assuming that role. And so if you are someone who has always identified with lack, and always felt like you had to pinch pennies, and always felt like you deserved that once you worked really, really hard for it and really tried hard for that thing, then chances are you're going to come up against some resistance, because that's the old processing system, the old operating system that's still calling forth the new you. And so if you struggled with lack, then what would it look like for you to assume the position of being abundant and to move from that space right there? If you are someone who constantly felt like you get sick easily, well, then what would it look like for you to move from a space of health and full and total health and abundance and vitality and energy? If you are someone who rejected love or could not accept love, or been very just pessimistic about love, then what would it look like for you to be open and available and receptive to love and receiving love in a different way? And so it's sort of like a compare and a contrast, but it's more of an assumption, and literally getting into that role and staying there, trusting and believe what you are calling forth is also calling you, and it's making room for you. And the fact that you can see it and believe it means that it is for you. Like, that reality is already there, just waiting for you to come into it. And we're going to get into that in some other videos. But I want to focus on reminding you that the old you must die. It must die. I mean, if you're moving towards a new identity and a new role and the new things that you want in life, then the old you must die. And you do not need to hold a meeting, and you do not need to hold a press conference, and you do not need to make an announcement about that. It is just simply, this is who I am now moving forward. This is how I will choose to operate. And this is what I am choosing in this present day moment. And this is where I have the most power. Yesterday is gone. The future I cannot predict. I only have the power to remain focused and centered on what I desire right now. And so again, let the old you die. Let the new you take over in the driver's seat. and move with that assurance, move with that confidence, move from that space of belief, move with that determination, move by adjusting habits, move by adjusting mindsets or feeding your mind some new ideas and some new ways of doing things. Shrink those goals because you don't need 300 things to move the needles. You probably need about good 5 to 10 that are sharp, laser focused, clear, specific, and that'll begin to move the needle on where it needs to be. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking time out to click on the video. I don't believe in accidents, so I'm hoping that you were able to get something from this video. And again, remember, if the new you is ever going to appear, that means the old you must die. So let's just go ahead and have a funeral for that old version of ourselves, and let's walk into our true power, our true potential, and our true ability to not only obtain the life that we desire, but the one that we deserve. I'll see you next time. If you need any resources, they're in the description below. Thank you.